5 major car brands are dying right now, and the dealerships selling them aren't telling you a thing. Sales are collapsing, model lineups are vanishing, and owners are stuck with cars plummeting in value faster than a stone off a cliff. One brand on this list just laid off 20,000 employees and has 12 months to find a buyer before bankruptcy. Another killed its entire sedan lineup and now sells exactly one model. And the brand at number 1, still moving serious volume in the US while bleeding billions behind the scenes. Today, I'm counting down 5 car brands that won't survive the next 3 years, whether it's infamous scandals, catastrophic product decisions, or simply getting crushed by better competition. Stay until the end because number 1 is the collapse nobody saw coming, and if you own one of their cars, your resale value is about to take a beating you weren't expecting. Number 5 is an Italian luxury brand that went from Ferrari's sibling to a cautionary tale about what happens when prestige can't cover up terrible engineering. Maserati used to mean something. In the 1960s and 70s, owning a Maserati put you in the same conversation as Ferrari and Lamborghini owners. These were exotic Italian sports cars with racing pedigree, gorgeous styling, and engines that sounded like opera. The Quattroporte, the Gran Turismo, these were cars that turned heads and commanded respect. But today, Maserati is a punchline, and the numbers prove it. In 2024, Maserati sold just 6,500 vehicles in the United States. That's down from 15,400 units in 2017, a 58% collapse in 7 years. Compare that to Porsche, which sold over 70,000 units last year, or even Genesis at 69,000 units. Maserati isn't competing anymore. It's barely surviving. The brand's global sales dropped to 15,300 units in 2024, the lowest in over a decade, and Stellantis, the parent company, just announced they're cutting Maserati's budget and restructuring the brand entirely because it's hemorrhaging cash. Here's what killed Maserati: unreliability. These cars are beautiful, fast, and sound incredible, but they break constantly. Consumer Reports ranked Maserati dead last in reliability for 3 straight years. Electrical gremlins, transmission failures, engine problems, suspension issues, everything breaks. And when it does, repair costs are absurd. A minor electrical issue can cost $2,000 to diagnose. A transmission replacement runs $15,000. And good luck finding a mechanic who knows how to work on these outside a dealership. The Ghibli sedan, their volume model, was supposed to compete with the BMW 5 Series and Mercedes E-Class. It sold well initially because it was cheaper, around $75,000 versus $90,000 for the Germans. But owners quickly realized why. The interior quality was worse, the infotainment was garbage, and reliability was non-existent. Resale value tanked. A 2018 Ghibli that sold for $80,000 new is worth maybe $28,000 today. That's 65% depreciation in 6 years. Compare that to a BMW 540i, which holds around 50% of its value. The brand tried pivoting to EVs with the Gran Turismo Folgore and Grecale Folgore, but they're priced so high nobody's buying. The electric Gran Turismo starts at $206,000. Who's spending that on a Maserati EV when a Porsche Taycan Turbo S costs $185,000 and is objectively better in every measurable way? Dealerships are closing, service networks are shrinking, parts availability is getting worse. If you own a Maserati right now, you're holding a depreciating asset with limited support and buyers fleeing the brand. And if you're thinking about buying one used because it's cheap, understand you're buying someone else's expensive mistake. But if Maserati proved that prestige can't save you from bad engineering, this next brand proves that even with a genius marketing strategy, you can't overcome one fundamental problem. Nobody wants to pay luxury prices for a Hyundai. Number 4 is a Korean luxury brand that was supposed to dethrone BMW and Mercedes but became a masterclass in why badge engineering doesn't work in the luxury market. Genesis launched in 2015 with a bold promise: German luxury without the German price tag. World-class design, cutting-edge technology, premium materials, and a warranty that put everyone else to shame. 10 years powertrain, 5 years bumper-to-bumper, 3 years free maintenance. On paper, it was perfect. The G70 competed with the BMW 3 Series. The G80 went after the 5 Series. The GV80 targeted the X5, and they were cheaper by $10,000 to $15,000. Genesis should have crushed it, but here's what actually happened. In 2024, Genesis sold 69,400 units in the United States. That sounds respectable until you compare it to BMW at 371,000 units, Mercedes at 324,000, or even Lexus at 346,000. Genesis has been around for nearly 10 years and is still getting obliterated by brands that launched in the 1980s. The problem isn't the product, the problem is perception. Luxury buyers don't shop on value, they shop on status. And Genesis, no matter how good the cars are, is still seen as a Hyundai wearing a nice suit. When you pull up to a country club in a G80, people don't see a luxury sedan competing with a BMW 5 Series. They see a dressed-up Hyundai. That perception is everything in this segment, and Genesis can't overcome it. The brand tried creating standalone dealerships to separate from Hyundai, but it didn't work. Most Genesis models are still sold at Hyundai stores because standalone Genesis showrooms couldn't survive on low volume. In some markets, they gave up entirely and went back to shared facilities. That destroys the premium experience luxury buyers expect. You can't charge $70,000 for a sedan and then sell it next to $25,000 Elantras. It doesn't compute. And then reliability started cracking. In 2022, Genesis recalled 50,000 vehicles for fuel pump failures that caused engines to stall without warning. In 2023, the GV60 and electrified G80 were recalled for power loss issues. Then came reports of infotainment glitches, battery degradation in EVs, and quality control problems on new models rolling off the line. Consumer confidence took a hit. The EV push made things worse. Genesis bet heavily on electrification, launching the GV60, the electrified G80, and the electrified GV70, but sales have been dismal. In 2024, Genesis sold just 13,000 EVs in the US, a tiny fraction of their total volume. The electrified G80 sedan was quietly discontinued after selling fewer than 1,000 units. Reports suggest the G70 sedan and possibly the electrified GV70 might be axed by 2026. The lineup is shrinking before it ever truly established itself. For owners, this means tanking resale values. A 2021 Genesis G83.5T that sold for $68,000 new is worth around $32,000 today. That's 53% depreciation in 3 years. A comparable BMW 540i from the same year holds about 48% of its value. That 5% difference is thousands of dollars. And as Genesis struggles for identity and volume, those resale values will only get worse. Genesis won't disappear tomorrow. Hyundai has deep pockets and will keep funding it for brand prestige. But unless they figure out how to overcome the perception problem, this brand will remain a marginal player selling to value shoppers, not luxury buyers. And in the luxury market, being the cheap option is a death sentence. So Genesis proved you can't buy your way into luxury. But the next brand on this list shows what happens when you abandon the one thing that made you special in the first place. Number 3 is a Japanese brand that once dominated World Rally Championships and gave us some of the most iconic performance cars ever built. Today, it's a shell selling outdated crossovers to budget buyers who don't know any better. Mitsubishi used to be legendary. The Lancer Evolution, one of the greatest performance sedans ever made. The 3000 GT, a technological marvel in the 1990s. The Montero, an off-road beast that competed with Land Cruisers. Mitsubishi had identity, passion, and engineering credibility. They weren't just another Japanese brand. They were the underdog that punched above its weight. But that Mitsubishi is gone. What remains is a zombie brand limping toward irrelevance. In 2002, Mitsubishi sold 345,000 vehicles in the United States. By 2024, that number collapsed to just 86,000 units, a 75% decline over 2 decades. And 2025 is shaping up to be even worse. The new US tariffs on imported vehicles stranded thousands of Mitsubishi units at ports, forcing the brand to hike prices on models that were already struggling to compete. The Outlander Sport, their best seller, now starts at $28,000. You can get a Honda CR-V or Mazda CX-5 for that price. Both are better vehicles. What killed Mitsubishi wasn't just declining sales, it was losing identity. The Lancer Evolution was discontinued in 2016. The Eclipse, once a sports car icon, was turned into a crossover. The Montero, axed from the US market. What's left? The Outlander, Outlander Sport, Eclipse Cross, and the Mirage, a subcompact car so bad it's become a meme. That's the entire lineup. 4 models. No sedans, no sports cars, no trucks. Nothing that makes Mitsubishi special anymore. And the products they do sell are outdated. The Outlander Sport has been on the same platform since 2010. 14 years with minor refreshes. The interior looks and feels a generation behind competitors. The infotainment is slow and clunky, the driving dynamics are numb. And reliability, the one thing Mitsubishi used to be known for, has become questionable. Consumer Reports ranks Mitsubishi 18th out of 32 brands for reliability, below average. The CVT transmissions in their vehicles are a disaster. Thousands of owners report premature failures, shuddering, overheating, and complete breakdowns, often before 100,000 miles. Mitsubishi extended warranties on some models, but the damage was done. Forums are full of owners warning others to avoid Mitsubishi CVTs entirely, and when a brand's reputation shifts from reliable Japanese engineering to avoid the transmission, that's a death spiral. Then there's the scandal history. In 2000, Mitsubishi was caught covering up serious defects for decades. In 2016, they were caught falsifying fuel economy data on over 625,000 vehicles. The fallout destroyed consumer trust. The company's market value was cut in half. Nissan had to step in and buy a 34% controlling stake just to keep Mitsubishi alive. Today, Mitsubishi exists as a subsidiary brand under the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance. But with Nissan itself now in crisis, that lifeline is looking shaky. Resale values on Mitsubishi vehicles are brutal. A 2020 Outlander that sold for $32,000 new is worth around $14,000 today. That's 56% depreciation in 4 years. A 2020 Honda CR-V holds around 55% of its value in the same time frame, and as Mitsubishi's future becomes more uncertain, those values will keep dropping. If you own a Mitsubishi, you're holding a depreciating asset from a brand that's shrinking every year. And if you're considering buying one, understand that you're betting on a brand with no clear future and a history of letting owners down. Mitsubishi fell because they lost their identity, but this next brand had an identity people loved. Then they threw it away, chasing a market that didn't want them. Number 2 is Nissan's luxury division that was supposed to rival Lexus, but instead became a case study in how abandoning what works can kill a brand. Infiniti launched in 1989 as Japan's answer to Lexus and Acura, and for a while it worked. The Q45 competed with the Lexus LS400. The G35 became a cult classic, offering BMW 3 Series performance at a lower price. The FX crossover was bold, aggressive, and different. Infiniti wasn't trying to be Lexus. They were the performance luxury brand. Powerful V6 and V8 engines, sharp handling, driver-focused interiors. They had identity and a loyal following. But today, Infiniti is a brand on life support. In 2017, Infiniti sold 153,000 vehicles in the United States. By 2024, that number fell to just 58,000 units, a 62% collapse in 7 years. Sales dropped 10% year over year in 2024 alone. In response, Infiniti shut down standalone dealerships and retreated into Nissan showrooms. Models are vanishing. The Q50 sedan, their last remaining car, was discontinued in 2024. The QX50 and QX55 crossovers ended production in early 2025. What's left? 2 SUVs, the QX60 and the QX80. That's the entire Infiniti lineup now. 2 SUVs. What killed Infiniti was abandoning performance for generic luxury. In the mid-2000s, Infiniti tried to reinvent itself. They ditched alphanumeric names like G35 and M45 for confusing Q and QX naming. They killed the naturally aspirated V6 and V8 engines people loved and replaced them with turbocharged 4-cylinders and CVTs. They chased Lexus's comfort-first philosophy instead of doubling down on what made Infiniti different. The result? They lost their core buyers without gaining new ones. And then reliability issues started piling up. The CVT transmissions in Infiniti vehicles, shared with Nissan, became infamous for failures. Shuddering, slipping, overheating, and complete breakdowns, often before 100,000 miles. Infiniti extended warranties on some models, but the damage to reputation was done. Then came recalls. Tens of thousands of vehicles for engine failure, sudden power loss, airbag defects, faulty brake calipers. Consumer confidence evaporated. Resale values collapsed. A 2019 QX50 that sold for $45,000 new is worth around $18,000 today. That's 60% depreciation in 5 years. Compare that to a Lexus NX from the same year, which holds about 58% of its value. And with Infiniti's future uncertain, those values will keep falling. Infiniti is hoping to rebound with upcoming EVs and a refresh of their remaining models. But here's the problem. Nissan, their parent company, is in crisis. Nissan just posted a $4.5 billion loss, laid off 20,000 employees, and is desperately searching for a merger partner to survive. If Nissan collapses, Infiniti goes with it. And even if Nissan survives, Infiniti is clearly not a priority. They're a luxury brand with no future products, no clear strategy, and a shrinking dealer network. For owners, this means you're stuck with a vehicle from a dying brand. Parts availability is already becoming an issue. Service centers are closing, and resale values are in freefall. Buying an Infiniti today is betting on a brand that's already lost. If Infiniti showed how abandoning identity kills a brand, this last one proves that even the biggest brands in the world can collapse when everything goes wrong at once. Number 1 is a brand that still sells over 800,000 vehicles a year in the US. But behind the scenes, they're hemorrhaging billions, laying off tens of thousands, and have 12 months to find a buyer before potential bankruptcy. This is Nissan. Nissan used to be a powerhouse. For decades, they stood for reliability, innovation, and affordable performance. The Maxima, a flagship sedan that competed with Accords and Camrys. The Altima, one of America's best-selling mid-size sedans. The Z-Car, an icon. The GTR, a supercar killer. The Frontier, a truck that refused to die. Nissan was a brand that commanded global respect. But today, Nissan is in total crisis, and the numbers are terrifying. In 2024, Nissan sold 865,000 vehicles in the United States. That looks solid until you realize it's down from over 1.6 million units in 2017. Global sales fell from 5.8 million units in 2017 to just 3.3 million in 2024, a 43% collapse in 7 years. And financially, it's even worse. Nissan reported a $4.5 billion loss in 2024 with operating profits down 90%. 90%. The company is bleeding cash so fast they've had to take drastic action. Nissan laid off 20,000 employees, roughly 7% of their global workforce. They're shutting down production lines and closing factories. They killed the Maxima in 2023. The Altima is rumored to be next. They pulled the plug on the Ariya EV in the US after dismal sales and canceled 2 upcoming EV projects. Nissan's product pipeline is empty, and the models they still sell are aging. The Frontier truck is on a platform from 2021, but the previous generation ran from 2005 to 2021 with almost no changes. The Rogue is their best seller, but it's facing brutal competition from CR-V, RAV4, and CX-5. What killed Nissan? A combination of scandal, mismanagement, and terrible product decisions. It started in 2018 when CEO Carlos Ghosn was arrested for financial misconduct, accused of hiding tens of millions in compensation and using company assets for personal gain. The scandal destroyed Nissan's credibility with partners and investors. The Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance, once the world's largest automaker, fractured. Then came the quality collapse. Nissan's CVT transmissions became infamous for failures. Lawsuits piled up, Consumer Reports dropped Nissan's reliability ratings, and emission scandals destroyed trust further. In multiple markets, Nissan was caught falsifying emissions and fuel economy data. Governments fined them. Customers sued. The brand's reputation went from reliable Japanese engineering to avoid at all costs. Nissan tried merging with Honda in 2024 to survive. The talks collapsed when Honda demanded full control, essentially turning Nissan into a subsidiary. Since then, Nissan has been desperately searching for a buyer or partner. Reports suggest they have 12 to 14 months of runway left before a financial crisis forces drastic action. Bankruptcy, acquisition, breakup, and sale of assets. Nobody knows, but the clock is ticking. For owners, this is a disaster. Resale values are tanking. A 2021 Nissan Altima that sold for $28,000 new is worth around $13,000 today. That's 54% depreciation in 3 years. A 2021 Honda Accord from the same year holds about 50% of its value. And as Nissan's future becomes more uncertain, buyers are fleeing. Who wants to buy a car from a brand that might not exist in 2 years? Parts availability is becoming a concern. Dealerships are worried. Service networks could shrink. And if Nissan goes under or gets absorbed by another company, warranties might not be honored. Owners are left holding vehicles that are plummeting in value with no clear support structure. Buying a Nissan right now is a gamble. You might get a decent car at a discount, but you're also betting on a brand that's fighting for survival. And when automakers collapse, it's not the executives who pay the price. It's the owners stuck with cars nobody wants. So there you have it. 5 major car brands circling the drain. Maserati, destroyed by unreliability. Genesis, unable to escape the Hyundai shadow. Mitsubishi, a shell of its former self. Infiniti, abandoned by its own parent company. And Nissan, a former giant now 12 months from potential collapse. If you own one of these brands, watch your resale value closely. And if you're thinking about buying, think long-term, because the badge on the hood might not exist in 3 years. Which brand on this list shocked you most? Drop it in the comments. And if this saved you from a bad purchase, hit that subscribe button because I've got more truth dealers don't want you to hear.